Here, whenever we open this application, it will ask the username and password details before loading to this page. So once you enter username and password, click on sign in only, the page will be loaded. So this pop-up is called as authentication pop-up. Another name, HTTP basic authentication. Authentication pop-up you can say, or you can say HTTP basic authentication pop-up. Now the Playwright doesn't directly interact with this pop-up. So instead of what we are going to do is credential details, username, password, that this credential details passed during the browser context creation. It means while opening the application. So here in the Playwright we are opening the application, right? How you are opening the application? Page.goto method. So first let me create a folder for authentication pop-up. I'll create a folder for authentication pop-up. So inside the authentication pop-up, let me create a spec file. Spec file, for example, here authentication.spec.ts. I'll take the test method format. I'll copy. I'll paste it here. Now we are going to handle the HTTP basic authentication pop-up. I'll remove this statement. Let me take this URL. I'll copy this. I'll paste it here. So whenever we launch this URL, we'll get the basic HTTP basic authentication pop-up. This pop-up requires username and password. So now we are going to pass the credential directly to the URL. Correct, directly to the URL. For example, here in this URL, correct, this is the URL of the application. Before the URL of the application, correct, I'm going to pass the username colon password. For this application, the username is admin and colon password is admin. Password is admin. Then put @ when you want to pass the authentication credential, the syntax is username colon password @ URL. This is syntax. Now username colon password @ URL we mentioned. So once we enter the username and password, which page you will get? Enter the username and password admin. Click on sign in. Directly we will get this page. So this page will be loaded. For example, here I want to verify whether this page is loaded or not. Correct. Enter the username and password. You will get this one. Congratulations, you must have proper credential. So I want to validate this message. Right click on inspect element. What locator we can take? I'll write the CSS selector expression. How do you write the CSS selector expression using example? Dot indicates class, then the class value example. See, this CSS selector expression will highlight the div. Under the div, how many elements are present? 2 elements, H3 element and then P element. I want to find the P element. So here you can give them space indicate the child, then P. Now I'll copy the expression. I'll go to the VS Code. How do you write it? Await a page dot locator, then I'll paste the locator value. This is used to find that success message, right? After login to this application, we'll validating this message. Correct? We are validating this message. So now I find the element. I'll store it in the variable. Correct? Here constant element. I'll just mention the element equal. Then I will validate the assertion. Await expect of. I will pass the element. Then I'm going to validate the text. So we have it to have text. I'll pass this text. We are validating the message. To log into the application, we are finding that success message. We are validating the expected value. Then after that, I want to wait for some time. Then I want to close the browser. Then page dot wait for timeout. Then I'll pass the 5 seconds. Now let me run this code. I'll copy this spec file name npx playwright test. I'll paste the spec file name. the script got passed now. Suppose username or password might be, it will come with at the rate. Example here, my username admin at the rate 123 might be my username admin at the rate 123. Now if you write at the rate here, mean at the rate 123, this will get confused because the at the rate only separated the credential detail as well as URL. But here already you mentioned at the rate. This is the login credential and this is the URL it will be considered. Because at the rate is coming. If no at the rate in your login credential, this will work. So you are directly inserting the login credential to the URL. How you are inserting, what is the syntax? Before at the rate you are writing the username and password. After at the rate you are writing the URL. Suppose your credential is having at the rate, that time it will not work. Correct, this one it will not work. Then what we need to do is username password, we need to encode it. So we'll go with the second way. This is the one of the way we can use it if your username and password doesn't have at the rate. We need to add one extra custom header to set the credential. Correct, to set the credential. We'll see it so that you will understand. And I'll copy the same spec file. I'll paste it again here. I'll change the spec file name 02. I'll remove the login credential here. Okay, I'll remove the login credential. Now what I'm going to do is, correct, what I'm going to do is, here I'm going to take a my credential in a variable. For example, here constant username admin. Okay, the next one constant password equal admin. Okay, so I have taken the separate variable username and password. Correct, I have taken the separate variable username and password. Now after this one, I am going to encode this username and password. How I am going to encode this username and password? Suppose here I am going to take a new variable, auth variable name, any name we can give it, and put here single quotes and mention that basic. Then plus here in JavaScript we have B2A method. Correct, so here we have a B2A method. This method will do the encoding. Correct, this method will do the encoding. This will do base 64 encoding. For encryption purpose we use base 64. The B2A method will do the encoding. Now in the B2A method, correct, in the B2A method I am going to mention the username. Directly you can mention the username, others the username and password you can store it in a variable, then you can call it here. Correct, just to pass the username and plus for username and password separated by colon. That's why here I'm mentioning the colon plus then password. This login details will be converted into base 64 encoding format. Now after that I'm going to call, correct, I'm going to call page dot, okay, page dot context. Context means in Playwright browser. Then dot call set extra HTTP headers. Correct, set extra HTTP headers used to set the custom headers. We can add the headers. So here I'm going to add the header, like this argument it takes the properties value. So here we can mention the open curly brace, close curly brace, and then we can mention the property name, property value. So just I'll call the property name authorization. Then I'll pass that credential are stored in the variable. I'll pass it here. I'll copy the respective spec file name. We are setting the basic authentication. So basic is a keyword, space, then username and password. This both are will be encrypted. What is the method? B2A method. npx playwright test. Then I'll mention the spec file name. Yeah, it's worked now. It is passed now here. Yeah, this is the one of the way for handling the authentication pop-up. Just I'll copy and paste it here. Next one, the username and password for authentication pop-up, you can set it in the configuration file. Remove this. Here I didn't set any username and password. Now what I'm going to do here is I'll go to the playwright.config.ts file. In the ts file there is a use section. Here there is a use section. In the use section you can set the username and password for the login credential. How you can set it? Right, http credential. See here, http credential, it will give the format here. This is a format, http credential, just paste it here, the format. Here we need to enter the username admin, and here we have to enter the password, username of the application, and this is password of the application. So after enter this, let me run the code. npx playwright test, then I'll paste the spec file name. It's handled the authentication pop-up and script got passed.